Right, so hello everyone. This is Sarah from After the Storm, and I'm joined today by Ella from Nutri, Oasis Health. So, just a bit of background about me. My company is After the Storm, and I'm here to support and empower people that are facing a childless lifestyle, and that's not by choice. So, I'm here to support and empower people that are struggling with that. Speaking from experience, I myself am childless not by choice, and it's been a tough slog, if I'm honest with you. And so the whole ethos behind After the Storm is that I want to help you get where you want to be, because just because you can't have children doesn't mean that you can't have an amazing life. There's still plenty to live for, trust me. So, yes, as I say, I'm joined by Ella from Nutri Oasis Health, a trained and qualified nutritionist. She is part of our community. I hope you don't mind me saying that, Ella. And she's also going to be publishing a book next year. And she's here to talk to us today around diet and how we can support our mental health through our diet. So, yeah, over to you then, Ella.
Okay, what I need to do first is share my screen, don't I?
You do.
Hello, I'm Isabella Reid, and I'm a member of BANT. That's the British Association for Nutrition and Lifestyle Medicine. I'm also a member of the CNHC, that's Complementary and Natural Healthcare Council. To help you get to know me a little bit, Sarah and I agreed that it might be interesting for you to hear my fertility story before launching into the subject of diet and mental health. Probably, like most people, my own fertility story starts when my husband and I planned to have a family. My periods kept coming, regular as clockwork, every month, yet no sign of a pregnancy. Eventually we visited our GP to find out what might be holding back the baby plan. A consultant then took the reins. Further investigations finally gave us some answers. Conception wasn't impossible under the circumstances, but a boost wouldn't go amiss. The suggestion was to use donor sperm mixed with my husband's in IVF treatment. The problem for us with this option was that we wouldn't know if it was really his baby or not, at least not until genetic tests were done. He wasn't keen on the idea, so we decided to leave it to nature and trust that if God intended us to have a child, we'd have one. In my early 40s, I missed a period, the first I'd ever missed. Was this a baby finally on the way? Excitement mounted as I bought the testing device and did my first ever pregnancy test. Disappointment. 2 or 3 months later, the same scenario. Again, disappointment. So I went to the doctor suggesting we check out early menopause. Well, she threw the idea out of hand. The average age for menopause was 52. I was nowhere near. After a lot of discussion, she finally asked, "You are regular, aren't you?" No, I wasn't. Not anymore. Only then did she decide to do a test for menopause. When the results were due, I rang the surgery to be told, in a bored tone, "It is just routine." This was a sensitive issue for me. My doctor's visit confirmed my fears. That week I was having a friend round for a meal. She was delighted to share that she'd finally fallen pregnant, especially since the heartache of miscarrying previously. How I wished that my story tallied with hers, and I could say I was pregnant too. Not just to have a baby, but to share that journey with someone else going through the same special journey. Alas, it was not to be. My missed period was a sign of early menopause, not pregnancy. That was the end of my hopes for a child. And sadly, our paths in life diverged as I was never to join the exclusive mothers club. At the age of 45, hopes of motherhood were all over for me. Instead, my life took a different turn, and I went back to university and studied for another degree, this time in nutritional therapy. As a result, I'm able to do this webinar for you on how diet affects mental health. Let's start by looking at how many people are affected by mental health issues. The NHS website states that 1 in 4 adults will experience mental health, and the mental health organisation Mind clarifies that as 1 in 4 each year. According to mind.org.uk, when it comes to common mental health problems such as anxiety and depression, 1 in 6 will report experiencing this in any given week. It turns out that depression is the most common mental health disorder worldwide. Anxiety is the second most common mental health disorder worldwide. Mixed anxiety and depression is the most common mental health disorder in Britain, according to the National Institute for Clinical Excellence, and may affect up to 15% of the population at any one time. When we compare common mental disorders between men and women, you can see on the chart that women represented in burgundy are more likely to experience mental health symptoms than men. Why? Quite simply, females produce less serotonin, the feel-good neurotransmitter, than males do, as much as a third less. This is a major reason why women are twice as likely to have mood problems as men. In women, PMS and menopausal mood problems will occur when levels of estrogen fall too low. This is because estrogen helps to program serotonin production and explains in part why women are more prone to mental health symptoms than men. We may have indulged in festive excesses, but what we're going to describe is true of any time of the year. Let's talk about commercially baked goods first. A 6-year cohort study of nearly 9,000 healthy volunteers found the greater the consumption of commercially baked goods, the higher the risk of depression. Notice they were healthy volunteers, not psychiatric patients. Commercially baked goods are high in processed refined carbs. Processed refined carbs are equal to sugar and refined grains, so we're talking about white flour, white rice, and anything made with these refined ingredients, such as white pasta, pizza bases, biscuits, cakes, pastries, and so on. Now let's look at sugar specifically. A 22-year prospective study on sugar intake in about 10,000 men and women found a strong association with depression and recurrent symptoms of feeling depressed. Finally, in a 3-year study on women's health of about 70,000 women, the greater the consumption of refined carbs or foods with added sugar was significantly associated with having depression. Let's talk about how sugar and refined carbs affect you. Sweets and their white flour twins can raise blood sugar too high within minutes. That sets the alarm bells to go off in your body, and the sugar clearers, that's insulin, scoop up the excess blood glucose, which incidentally gets stored as fat. That then leaves too little glucose in the blood to be used for fuel. As your blood sugar subsequently drops too low, you crash. That sets you up to crave another sugar hit, and off you go on a sugar roller coaster ride with consequent rise and fall in your moods. Symptoms of low blood sugar include constant worrying, anxiety, craving for sweets and alcohol, irritability, depression, and crying spells. Sugar and refined carbs are definitely not your friends. Do drinks affect us in a similar way to sugar and refined carbs? Sugar and sweetened beverages first. Soft drink consumption among teens is directly linked to depression, suicidal thoughts, behavior problems, aggression, and violence. What about adults? A study among adults in South Australia, with an average age of around 46, found soft drink consumption was associated with mental health problems, including depression, stress-related problems, suicidal thoughts, and psychological distress. Some were drinking as much as half a litre or more a day. 1 can of Coca-Cola, that's 330 millilitres, contains 33 grams of sugar, which is about 7 teaspoons of sugar. The World Health Organization recommends sugar ideally form 5% of total energy intake per day, which is 25 grams or 6 teaspoons. So, drinking 1 can of Coca-Cola blows the ideal sugar limit for the day. A Chinese study of soft drink consumption in adults also suggested that high consumption of soft drinks was significantly related to a higher prevalence of depressive symptoms. Are artificial sweeteners a good substitute? The artificial sweetener aspartame is more likely to cause irritability and depression when consumed in high amounts. Drinks such as Diet Coke include aspartame as their artificial sweetener. Aspartame is sold under the brand names of, for example, Equal and NutraSweet. It's known to be an excitotoxin, meaning it overexcites brain cells. Both the artificial sweetener aspartame and alcohol inhibit production of your feel-good neurotransmitter serotonin. Caffeine is in coffee, tea, colas, diet sodas, energy drinks, and chocolate. Of course, if you've overindulged in chocolate, you've also upped your sugar consumption. Then there's the extra teaspoons of sugar in your coffees and teas if you sweeten them. Caffeine can contribute to poor sleep, making you tired and irritable, but also give you feelings of anxiety, and it inhibits the production of serotonin, the brain's natural antidepressant. It might give you a boost in the short term, but it tends to increase anxiety longer term. Crisps aren't only a source of refined carbs, they're also a source of bad fats. Bad fats can be a problem for our moods too. I need to emphasize that we do need fat for good health and for good mood. That's good fats. The problem fats are the vegetable oils: corn oil, soya oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, sesame oil, cottonseed oil, etc. These problem fats are found in commercially fried foods and commercially baked goods, commercial salad dressings, commercial mayonnaise. Here's a challenge for you. Next time you go shopping, try checking the ingredients for sunflower oil. You might be surprised how often it comes up. I find crisps are usually cooked in sunflower oil. There are 3 reasons why these fats are a problem. One reason is because they're unstable and go rancid very quickly. That means they damage your cells and tissues, especially in fat-rich organs like your brain, which, by the way, is the fattest organ in the body and made up of 60% fat. These seed oils become oxidized just like an apple does when it's cut open and left out in the light and air. The apple turns brown, which is due to the reaction with the oxygen in the air. Refined seed oils have had their antioxidants removed, which is why they go rancid when exposed to light and air. But you can't smell the rancidity because they've been subjected to high heat, which deodorizes them and further damages the oils. Another reason these oils are a problem is because we're now consuming them in excess. That's because vegetable oils are a lot cheaper to produce. Major changes have taken place in our food supply over the past 100 years, when food technology and modern agriculture led to a vast production of vegetable oils. These are now being used in, for example, our commercially baked goods and in our fast food and commercially fried foods. A third reason these oils are a problem is because eating them in excess has created chronic inflammation in our body and brain. That kind of inflammation can interfere with how our brain functions. We've just touched on the fact that we're consuming vegetable oils in excess in one form or another. Vegetable oils are a source of omega-6 oils. While we need omega-6s in our diet, too much omega-6 becomes a problem. Grains also have omega-6 in them. They are found much more in our diet, both directly and indirectly. Our conventionally reared meat and poultry are fed grains. That means their meat, milk, and eggs are richer in omega-6 fats. I happen to know that a well-known brand of conventionally raised duck is fed soy as a cheap form of protein. Soy is also a source of omega-6. Omega-6s are essential to us, but not in the huge amounts we now have them in our Western diet. They're causing chronic inflammation, which itself has been associated with mental health disorders. In fact, inflammation can induce symptoms of depression, as demonstrated in experimental and clinical studies. The other essential fat that we need is omega-3, but it's very limited in our diet. Omega-6 and omega-3 have opposing properties. Put simply, omega-6 promotes inflammation, whereas omega-3 reduces inflammation. Inflammation is linked to depression and can directly influence mood. Omega-3s are found mainly in oily fish, some in crab, mussels, oysters and squid. Furthermore, these foods have the form of omega-3 that the brain can use. Chia seeds are rich in omega-3 with 75% omega-3 and 20% omega-6, and flax seeds have 58% omega-3. Pumpkin seeds have 15% omega-3, but have much more omega-6, 42%. Walnuts have 5% omega-3 and 51% omega-6. However, plant sources of omega-3 need to be converted to the form the brain can use. Not everyone can convert efficiently. That depends on your genetics and your sex. Men tend to be more inefficient in converting them. So you might prefer fish oil supplements. If you don't like fish and seafood, vegans can take supplements sourced from plant marine algae. While the conversion of plant sources of omega-3 can be inefficient if your genetics are against you, it's particularly a problem for all of us if there's too much omega-6 in the diet because of the competition between them. And let me repeat that. While the conversion of plant sources of omega-3 can be inefficient if your genetics are against you, it's a problem for all of us if there's too much omega-6 in the diet because of the competition between omega-6 and omega-3. We evolved with a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3, but our Western diet now has a ratio of anything from 20 to 25 to 1. So you can see our diet is way out of balance. That's why we need to cut right back on the vegetable oils, products containing them, and ideally the grain-fed meat and poultry. Choosing grass-fed or pasture-raised meat or wild game is much healthier for you than grain-fed because the meat has more omega-3 in its composition. In addition, we need to increase our omega-3s with oily fish or high omega-3 seeds. Alternatively, we can supplement with a good quality fish oil or a vegan alternative. Consumption of omega-3s, especially the one found in oily fish, has been linked to positive mental outlook and reduction in mental stress or distress. When it comes to depression, the more omega-3 fats to omega-6 fats in the brain, the better your mood. Be patient though. It takes up to 3 months to replace enough of what's in your brain currently to feel the benefit. The NHS recommends at least 1 portion of oily fish per week. Experts suggest 2 to 3 portions of oily fish per week. I remember learning about this years ago, before I became a nutritional therapist. I met a young woman who was suffering with depression. I told her about fish oil supplements and that they took minimum 3 months to help. About a year later, I got a surprise message back from her through my husband to say a big thank you because, as she put it, I'd saved her life. Obviously, if a deficiency in omega-3 isn't the underlying problem, then taking supplements won't make the difference. But it's worth checking, and there are blood tests that can be done to measure your blood cell fatty acids and what proportion of omega-6 to omega-3 you currently have. We've talked about carbs and fats so far. Let's move on now to the third major macronutrient in our diet, protein. We need protein to function properly in all sorts of ways. Our brain functions on chemicals called neurotransmitters, which are made from proteins. Our feel-good neurotransmitter is called serotonin. If you have enough, you'll feel happy, and you'll sleep better too. To make serotonin, we need tryptophan, which comes from protein. The best sources of tryptophan in the diet are turkey, beef, pork, dairy products, chicken, and eggs. Vegans would need to eat bananas, chickpeas, and nuts, especially almonds, and seeds, although these plant sources provide less than animal sources. But tryptophan isn't very plentiful in our meat anymore. That's because our farm animals are fed grains, which are low in tryptophan. To compound the problem, we're eating a lot more grain-based carbs like bread, pasta, biscuits, cake, pizza, etc. So we're not getting enough tryptophan. Symptoms of serotonin deficiency include anger and negativity. Healthy fat is needed to increase the availability of tryptophan in the brain too. To some people, the concept of healthy fat is an oxymoron. We've been led to believe that low-fat this and low-fat that are healthy options, so many of us have become fat-phobic. Yet we need fat for our brain to work well. Scientific study shows that a lower-fat diet deteriorates your mood. As mentioned a moment ago, healthy fat is needed to increase the availability of tryptophan in the brain. In a UK study on 20 healthy volunteers, hostility, feeling depressed and dejected became worse on a lower fat diet. Tension and anxiety improved when they switched to a higher fat diet. We've already learnt how oily fish, like wild-caught salmon, is good for you. Olive oil drizzled on salad is also good for you. Olive oil supports serotonin's antidepressant activities in your brain. Extra virgin olive oil is fine to cook with, but don't let it get so hot that it smokes. That's when the oil is damaged and you shouldn't use it then. Avocados are a low-sugar fruit full of healthy monounsaturated fats. Nuts and seeds are a sort of source of monounsaturated fats, but some are also high in omega-6, so go easy on eating them. The nuts lowest in omega-6 are macadamia nuts and cashews. Coconut oil is mostly a type of saturated fat that is easily digested and can provide fuel for the brain. Saturated fat isn't the villain we were all led to believe it was. Actually, it turned out to be the trans fats formed by damaged vegetable oils and hydrogenated vegetable oils that were dangerous to our health. The original study by Ansel Keys didn't differentiate between saturated fats and trans fats. The scientific literature has since vindicated saturated fats. Apparently, creamy fats support the function of omega-3s in our brain, reducing the adverse effect of excess omega-6s. Butter contains a special fat called butyrate, which is used extensively in the brain. For example, it serves as a base for making your calming neurotransmitter GABA, which is your natural Valium. You could also use ghee, which is clarified butter. Believe it or not, butter, ghee, and coconut oil help you to lose weight. A 2015 review comprising 13 trials actually found that the medium-chain triglycerides found in these fats helped decrease body weight, waist and hip circumference, total fat and belly fat, compared to long-chain triglycerides found in other saturated fats. If you're worried about cholesterol, don't be. It's needed in the brain as an essential part of serotonin production. And that's not all. We need cholesterol for our stress-coping hormones and our mood-regulating sex hormones. Low cholesterol is associated with depression, anxiety, irritability, violence, suicide, and insomnia. Anybody want a knob of butter with their veggies? I hope I've convinced you that healthy fat is not your enemy. Some people don't want to eat fat because of the fear of putting on the pounds. As I already said, butter, ghee and coconut oil actually help you to lose weight. If you've been indulging too much over the festive season, you might be considering dieting and cutting back on the calories. Unfortunately, skipping meals and opting for low-calorie or low-fat diets to lose some of those extra pounds that are expanding the waistline will inhibit the production of your feel-good neurotransmitter serotonin. Stress inhibits serotonin production. When we're not stressed, tryptophan is converted to serotonin. When we are stressed, that conversion is switched to making a different chemical, which is bad for the brain. So, adopting some stress reduction techniques can be helpful for this. Enemies of serotonin include stimulants such as caffeine, diet pills, cocaine, and the like, and also the artificial sweetener aspartame is an enemy of serotonin. Remember, brand names include NutraSweet and Equal. Putting it all together so far, eating a diet of fast food, that's hamburgers, sausages, pizza, has been associated with a higher risk of depression. A Spanish study identified that the more fast food people ate, the higher the risk of depression. Commercially baked goods and processed pastries, that's muffins, donuts, croissants, were also associated with depression. But it wasn't a case of the more you eat of these foods, the worse the depression gets. It seems it's more a case of once you've eaten a certain amount, it can tip you over the threshold into depression. The factors which scientists believe contribute to a low mood or depression are 1. The trans fats from damaged vegetable oils in bakery and processed foods, and 2. Foods rich in refined carbs. One reason we might crave these refined carbs is because it helps tryptophan to get into the brain, which is then converted into serotonin and leaves us feeling better. But it seems that the short-lived relief we get is blown by the longer-term, low-grade inflammation this sets up. And this low-grade inflammation is associated with having depression. These refined carbs are high on the glycemic index, the GI, which basically means they spike your blood sugar quickly. It's much better for your mood to eat unrefined carbs such as whole grains, whole wheat, brown rice, quinoa, etc. These are low GI, which means they allow your blood sugar to rise gradually and not go as high, and this helps to avoid the sugar roller coaster ride and keeps your mood more stable. Now I'd like to look at an Australian study of over 1,000 women and mental health. This study compared a traditional diet with Western and modern diets. A traditional diet was the most effective at improving depression and anxiety. The traditional diet comprised vegetables, fruit, beef, lamb, fish, whole grains, and high-fat dairy products. The Western diet comprised meat pies, processed or fried foods, pizza, chips, hamburgers, refined grains and white bread, sugary products, flavoured milk drinks, and beer. Remember, this was Australia, where beer is a popular alcoholic beverage. The modern diet comprised fruits, salads, fish, tofu, beans, nuts, yogurt, and red wine. Unexpectedly, the modern diet was associated with a higher rather than a lower likelihood of depression. I'd like to add that the term traditional also includes how the livestock was raised. This study was done in Australia, where beef and lamb are still predominantly pasture-fed, i.e. they eat grass. The traditional pasture-fed meat and dairy products have a higher content of omega-3, like the traditional diet of Crete, the archetypal Mediterranean diet. Fed on grains as today, here in the Northern Hemisphere, the meat and milk has a much higher omega-6 to 3 ratio. We'll go on now to talk about supporting nutrients. Vitamin D activates the conversion of tryptophan to serotonin in the brain. We need enough vitamin D for this to happen. We make vitamin D by exposing our skin to sunlight during the spring and summer months. Right now, we're in a vitamin D winter. Between October and April at this latitude, we can't make vitamin D. We need to be out in the sunshine during the spring and summer months. Generally, 10 to 15 minutes a day in the sunshine with bare arms and legs will help most people make enough vitamin D to last through the winter. The darker your skin, the longer you need to be out in the summer with bare skin. One of our problems today is that we've all been persuaded to cover up our skin for fear of developing skin cancer. We can also get vitamin D from food, but food sources are usually not enough, although better than none. Food sources of vitamin D include oily fish such as salmon, sardines, pilchards, trout, herring, kippers, and eel, which all contain reasonable amounts of vitamin D. Also cod liver oil. Some amounts are in egg yolk, meat, offal, and milk, but the amounts of vitamin D vary during the seasons. Incidentally, mushrooms can also be a source of vitamin D if they've been exposed to UV light. Vitamin D deficiency is sadly very common in the UK. One survey estimated that 50% of adults are low or insufficient in vitamin D. If you're concerned about being low in vitamin D, most GPs are open to checking your blood levels, so you can have tests done on the NHS. If you're found to be low, they can give you supplemental vitamin D to tide you over the winter. But a warning, supplementing vitamin D can cause toxicity if you overdo it, unlike tanning, which will never cause toxicity. So best to get your blood levels checked if you think you need it and want to supplement. While we're on the subject of sunshine, bright light is also important for good mood. I'll include a few words about this because it's so important. This is the lifestyle medicine part of my work. Many people work indoors all day and don't get enough bright light. The bright light is important for our health. Reduced light can cause a drop in serotonin levels and affect your mood. In 2002, a light-sensing protein at the back of the eye was discovered that has nothing to do with sight. When light reaches these cells at the back of the eye, serotonin production is triggered. These special cells, which sense blue light, are directly or indirectly connected to regions in the brain that control depression, alertness, sleep, and the production of the sleep hormone melatonin. Some people are particularly sensitive to low light levels in autumn and winter. They can suffer from seasonally affective disorder, or SAD. One answer to this is to use bright light therapy with a light box, ideally early in the day without wearing glasses or contact lenses. Serotonin is stimulated by bright light. Talk to your doctor if you tend to feel miserable during the winter. You might be suffering from SAD, and it's usually easily remedied. Bright light therapy helps both seasonal depression and non-seasonal depression. To give you an idea of the difference in light levels, a light box to treat SAD will produce 2,500 lux. Lux is a measure of light. A cloudy winter's day will give you 2,000 lux compared to a bright summer's day, which will expose you to 100,000 lux. If you stay indoors all day, we might be exposed to no more than 100 lux. Even if you don't suffer from SAD, our modern lifestyle works against us. We spend most of our day indoors looking at screens and then turn on lights at night. The old incandescent bulbs had a predominantly orange hue, but today's LED lamps have a strong blue light component. The blue light activates blue light sensing cells at the back of our eye at the wrong time of day. This disrupts our circadian rhythm and we don't sleep well. If we continue with this lifestyle, then depression and anxiety can start to affect us. One answer to this, is to wear blue light blocking glasses in the evening, or at least use an orange filter on your computer and smartphone screens. So, we need bright light in the morning and blue light blocking in the evening. Now let's get back to diet again. There are many vitamins and minerals and plant nutrients that benefit us. Not having enough of them can cause us health problems. We evolved to need a very broad spectrum of nutrients consumed in balance. People who eat healthier diets comprising whole foods, fruit and vegetables, and nuts often report better mental health. Fruits and vegetables, as well as other components of a healthy diet, such as whole grains, fish, lean red meats, and olive oil, are rich in important nutrients such as folate, other B group vitamins, and minerals magnesium, selenium, zinc, and the fats mono and polyunsaturated fatty acids, and also polyphenols and fiber. We need these nutrients for the production of our neurotransmitters, among other things. When it comes to choosing your food, especially your vegetables, here are some qualities to look for. Rainbow foods. Choose vegetables from all colours to brighten not only your plate, but your mood too. This will help you get a broad spectrum of nutrients. Diversity of plant foods. This will give you a wide variety of nutrients and fibre which feed both you and your gut flora. Organic. If you can afford it, choose organically grown over conventionally grown to avoid pesticide residues. Some sources suggest organic and biodynamically grown fruit and veg are richer in nutrients. Vegetables over fruit. While both are healthy, vegetables are more beneficial and lower in sugar. Major on the veg rather than the fruit. Here's why. Nutrient density. This means you eat more nutrients for less calories. After organ meats, shellfish, oily fish and lean fish, vegetables are the next most abundant nutrient-dense foods in our diet. Vegetables have a nutrient density score of 352 compared to lean fish which has a score of 375. Fruit, by comparison, has a nutrient density score of 134, which is why I recommend choosing vegetables over fruit. An example of important nutrients in veggies is that leafy greens are rich sources of magnesium, a mineral which has been found to improve depressive symptoms in middle-aged adults and older adults. The more the magnesium, the fewer the digestive symptoms. Finally, what we eat doesn't just feed our body and our brain, it feeds our gut flora too. There's emerging evidence in a new field of research that shows how our gut flora benefits our health, including our mental health. Did you know that at least 90% of your cells in and on your body are not human? Most of those cells are bacterial and live in your gut. There's a connection between our gut and our brain. Our brain communicates with our gut flora. Our gut flora communicate with our brain. For every one message the brain sends to the gut sends 9 messages back to the brain. That's one reason why what we feed ourselves and our gut flora makes a difference to how we feel. When our gut flora is in healthy balance between beneficial and non-beneficial, we feel good. But when that balance is upset, which can happen, for example, by eating too much sugar and refined carbs and not enough veggies, this can trigger inflammation. And inflammation is strongly implicated as an underlying issue in mental disorders. A natural way to provide beneficial microbes is to eat fermented foods. Fermented milk products such as live yogurt and live kefir are one option. If you're dairy intolerant, there are now coconut milk versions of both yogurt and kefir. Fermented vegetables also provide beneficial microbes. These come in the form of live sauerkraut. Don't choose pasteurized or the beneficial bacteria will have been killed. You can make your own. Our local farmers market has a stall which sells fermented vegetables, from fermented cabbage, both red and white, fermented beetroot, fermented carrot, fermented kohlrabi, and fermented fennel. All these fermented vegetables will provide you with beneficial microorganisms. Health food shops sell them too. If you're not used to fermented vegetables, start by taking a teaspoon a day and gradually increase the amount to avoid any bloating or other undesirable gut symptoms. The science is still in its infancy, but supplementing with beneficial bacteria, commonly called probiotics, can support balanced gut flora and better mental health. One preliminary placebo-controlled human trial demonstrated that oral probiotic microbes can decrease anxiety, diminish perceptions of stress, and improve mental outlook. I myself took a liquid supplement of a combination of beneficial bacteria about 5 years ago when I was particularly stressed and feeling very negative and grumpy. Taking this supplement really made a difference in my mood and outlook. I would not have been convinced if I hadn't experienced it. If you apply the dietary recommendations shared in this webinar by eating a diet rich in whole foods that's nutrient-dense with healthy fats and the right balance of omegas, plus a rainbow of vegetables and fruit, you will benefit by nourishing your brain and your body. You'll promote healthy gut flora, which will look after you. You'll be eating an anti-inflammatory diet that supports your mental health. As a bonus, it will help towards protecting you from the chronic diseases of our Western world. This is how diet can help you to better emotional well-being. Although these recommendations are more general rather than personalised to your specific needs, I hope this has given you a helpful insight into what's possible with diet and light to improve your mood and your mental health. If this topic has inspired you and you wish to dig deeper, some of the material I used came from the following books and are well worth reading: Julia Ross's The Mood Cure and Dr. Sachin Panda's The Circadian Code. Congratulations if you made it this far. Thank you for listening, and I wish you well.
That was really good. Thank you so much. I wasn't quite expecting that amount of detail, but that was amazing.
Okay.
That was brilliant. So, so basically the underlying message is avoid sweeteners and stick with a whole grain, whole food diet, isn't it? And you'll reap the benefits.
Yeah. I mean, sweeteners both in terms of sugar and the refined carbs, plus don't use artificial sweeteners.
Yeah, yeah. I was surprised what you said about was it aspartame?
Aspartame.
Being linked to depression. I hadn't realized. I hadn't known about that because it's in everything, isn't it? You know, if there's sort of if you're trying to do a low fat or a low, you know, you're trying to lose weight, it will be in all the diet foods, won't it? Yeah, which is not going to contribute to your mental well-being at all. So yeah, no, thank you very much for that, Ella. I really appreciate it. So I hope you found that useful. It's been incredibly enlightening for me, and I hope that it will help you support your mental health going forward. So yeah, my thanks to Ella, and it's hopefully you'll get to see this back at some point. Thank you.